All right, so what we should have now is a pretty solid selection around the bird. I used a combination of the quick select, and then I made just sort of a big selection down here around his feet. And then I took away from that using the magnetic lasso, holding option. Personally, I find it easier to take away a little in this kind of area instead of adding to, just personal preference. Right. And we saved this selection again by going up to save selection. If for any reason something happened and we lost that selection, we could reload it, which is a good tool to know it exists. If you have something you're working with that you know you're going to be selecting a few times, working back into it's a nice option to have. So if I go to my move tool and I go to move that bird around, I can see that black background color because, again, my background right down here says black. That's why that's behind him. And if I were to deselect and need to move him again, I'd have to reselect him. And even if I load my selection, it's not going to be, and I have two of these here. I think it's this one. It's not going to be in the spot where I moved him to, right? So that doesn't really help me in this case. So I need to put him back. So what we're going to do is something a little different, all right? We're going to start to deal with a separation of this file. So for this, what we need to have is our layers panel open, right? And this is a really, really important panel in Photoshop. This is going to be how you do most of your work. If you don't see it, just like any panel, you can go up to Window, choose Layers. So I have my layer panel right here. And I see one layer. I see a background layer, and it has a little lock icon. And I want to make this into a layer that I can edit, right? And so all I have to do for that is anywhere in here, double click. It's now going to say that it's going to give it a new name. It's going to create a layer 0. And they call it a layer 0 because if we had a layer 1, this would be behind or underneath a layer 1. So I hit OK. And now I notice the name no longer says background. It no longer has a lock. And now if I were to move him around, I can see that those gray and white boxes, that checkerboard, which is Photoshop's way of representing transparency. So there's nothing there. It's not black. It's not white. It doesn't matter what I have in here. That shows that there's nothing there. That's just empty space. Okay. Now, I don't want to necessarily do that. I want to be able to work with him a little different. And for that, I'm going to use a really, really important quick key command, which is going to be Command and J. All right. So Command J is going to take my selection, whatever I have selected, on the layer I have selected. And the technical kind of name for this, when you hit Command J, the command it's doing is called New Layer via Copy, which is just a fancy way of saying create a new layer out of what I have selected by copying it to that layer. So I'm going to hit Command and J. And again, if you're on a PC, Control J. And what that did was that gave me a second layer. Now I have a layer 0, which is my original image, and a layer 1. If I click this eyeball icon, I can hide these layers and I can see that's what's on layer 0. And that is what's on layer 1. It's just the bird by himself. I have 2 copies of the bird now. If I grab him with the move tool, even without selecting him, since he's the only thing on that layer, I can now grab him and move him around with the move tool. And I can see that this is now a separate layer. So I can move him around. I have 2 copies of him. I can start to do different things with that. I'm going to Command Z and just put him back where he was. He is still there. All right, so why would I want to do something like this? Well, maybe I want to move him around. Maybe I do want a copy of him. I want to change something about the background. I want to be able to work with the background and not work with him, vice versa. Or create a layer composite or an image composite. That would be an image composite is the idea of taking 2 images and combining them, which is what Photoshop's kind of known for. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to minimize Photoshop. I'm just going to go into that file, those files that I gave you earlier. And there's a file called 2.2 Bird on Beach. And I want you to just drag that guy into Photoshop. And now we have these 2 different files here side by side. I still have my untitled from earlier. I can actually close that out. I don't need him anymore. Don't save. All right, so I have my 2 files here. So I'm going to go to the file I want to start on, which is my bird. And all I have to do, it's very, very drag and drop. I'm going to grab the layer, not the bird himself. I'm just going to grab this layer. And I'm going to say, I want this to go to this file here. So I hover over that name and the other one comes up. Now I can't let it go here. I have to actually come down into here and say, I want it in this general area. I can let go. And now I have this image composite. It's made up of this original image and this on top of it, right? Nice and easy. So I can start to manipulate and mess with some items like this. All right. And this is going to be a really important concept. So again, just to show you that one more time, Command Z a couple times so he's gone. Here I have this new layer. I just grab the layer, hover over the name, scroll or kind of navigate down a little bit, and let go. And there he is.